Hi, you're watching DNA Today, a multi-award winning genetics podcast where we explore everything to do with genetics, from CRISPR to rare diseases to new research. We have won the Science and Medicine Podcast Award for many years now. We have hundreds of episodes, and we really hope you enjoy these conversations where we dive into so many genetic concepts. I'm Kira Deneen, a certified genetic counselor and your host. What would you do if you won $10 million? Buy a mansion, expensive cars, travel the world, right? Our guests today don't have to imagine what they would do because they did win $10 million. But they're not blowing their money on a luxury lifestyle. They're spending the money to find a cure for their son's rare disease. Joining us are Jeffrey Randall Allen and Jen Allen. Jeff is better known to over 100 million YouTube viewers as Player 831, the winner of MrBeast's epic Beast Games, where he took the largest grand prize ever in a TV show. Jeff came on the show with a mission: raising awareness for Creatine Transporter Deficiency, the rare genetic condition that affects his youngest son, Lucas. Alongside his wife, Jennifer, who's been part of this incredible journey from diagnosis to advocacy, and now funding research that could help their family and others. We'll talk about the strategy, the stress, and the heart behind Jeff's game show victory, and how that win is now fueling real hope for a cure. Jeff and Jen, thank you so much for coming on. I'm talking to celebrities here. You were featured on Beast Games' inaugural season.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like D-list celebrities, but I'll take it nonetheless. Yeah, season one, Beast Games, was more than we could have ever imagined. I think kind of our journey is just beginning.
Yeah, it's so exciting. And when I saw the headlines that the winner of Beast Games was going to use the money towards finding treatment and hopefully just a straight up cure for their son that has a rare disease, I was like, this is such a great PR, not move, but it's so great for rare diseases, not just what your son has of the creatine transporter deficiency, or CTD, as we'll probably refer to it during the interview here, but just the awareness for rare diseases in general. Jeff, going back to when you heard about applying to Beast Games, what was your thought process? I mean, did you ever let yourself think I could win? Or was it like, let's just throw our hat in the ring like you buy a lottery ticket?
It's funny because I mean, someone asked me that recently, and like I never really thought about winning early on, but on the flip side, I never thought that I would lose early. So it's kind of like I'm going to go on and I'm going to have fun. I'm going to play as hard as I can and play kind of fair. But I knew I could go far enough, but like I didn't really think about winning until probably the top 20.
Because there started with 1,000 people. Jen, what was your reaction when Jeff found out, like, oh, wow, yeah, I'm going to be one of 1,000 contestants and leaving you and the boys to be able to do this? What were you thinking at that time?
Jeff has a bit of a history. Like, I'm going to go after things and change things up, and it keeps me on my toes a bit. He said it in passing, what I call it on the way to the bathroom comment, like, oh, by the way, I submitted my name to, and I go, oh, okay. And I've learned to just let it hang until there's an actual event where decisions have to be made. So I said, oh, okay. And I've said this before. I say, we're handling our midlife crisis very different. He was like, I'm going to go do this and be a relevant dad to our 9-year-old son, while I'm having a different experience. And so I just bookmarked it. And then he told me while he was visiting family in Ohio, he called me and said, so I actually got on. And then I went, okay, what does this mean? Logistics, right? I went into full logistics mode because that's the only way to kind of control the anxiety, is to just start planning. So were we surprised he did it? No. Were we also surprised he got on? Not necessarily, but I don't think we fully wrapped our brains around the magnitude of it until much, much later.
Yeah. And as I was watching it, obviously I headed into watching it knowing that, Jeff, you were going to win. So it was interesting because anytime you'd pop up on the screen, I'm like, okay, interesting. They're showing Jeff. Okay. So then I think it was the second episode, your team, because during Beast Games, there were a lot of points where people were playing as part of a team. And if your team lost, you were out. And there was one game where the different teams had to catch a ball that was coming down from the ceilings, and you had to make sure you're covering enough space, and the ball dropped, and because it hit the ground, that meant that, all right, your team's out. And I was like, how is Jeff gonna come back from this, right? They had to review the tapes. What went through your mind? Because obviously, unlike me, you didn't know you were gonna win the games at this point. You're still very much in them. What were you thinking?
This is episode 2 of 10, so very early. And just to give kind of the listeners a little context, we got to choose, we went in and we kind of grabbed a token from a bag, and it was kind of one of 4 floors. I actually traded to get on that floor. So I was on floor 1, and I'm like, you know what? It says, I hope you can catch. I played football in college. Like, let me get on this floor because I think I can catch. So after we lost, and I was sitting there for like probably 60 to 90 minutes where I thought I was going home.
Wow, it was that long. Because you don't get a sense of timeline as much, which makes sense. It's all edited in post-production.
And there was like, for 60 minutes, there was no like, maybe we won. It was, we lost. Talking to my friends, kind of giving hugs. People were, upset because we were having so much fun. Like, these games it's like an adult summer camp. It was so fun. So I was thinking about, okay, it's Friday night. I'll fly home Saturday. I'll spend time with the family on Sunday, and then Monday, I'm back at the grind. When that decision got reversed, it was like amazing. It was like, I don't want to say made everything else kind of like we were playing on borrowed time, but I felt like I had a different kind of a different level of chance or different experience kind of moving forward, because I felt what it felt like to get eliminated, but actually I didn't.
And I was so surprised and impressed that you, along with many other players, passed up offers as high as $1 million to walk away and eliminate yourself from the games and the chance of winning the 10 million, but that you could walk away with $1 million. Just how do you make that decision and that gamble? Because $1 million still is a lot of money to put towards your son's cure.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, like the primary reason why I joined Beast Games, obviously the money is great, but it's MrBeast. He's got almost 400 million YouTube subscribers. There is nobody in kind of today's content creator space that even kind of holds a candle to him. So if I can get on and tell my story to MrBeast's audience, people are going to know about CTD. People are going to know about Lucas, and people are hopefully going to want to help. So the qualitative side of it, the non-prize winning side, I think was bigger than winning the prize. So for me, it was like, can I go on? Can I tell the story? And can I go as far as I can? So don't get me wrong, $1 million is a lot. $1 million to try to solve a rare disease is a drop in the bucket. So for me, I had a bigger vision than $1 million. But for my friends, like all those people, Tawana, Dino, Harrison, and Jeremy, that turned down $1 million in episode 2, and they wouldn't have got eliminated, it blew my mind. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, I could not believe that when the 4 of them were on the stage in front of everybody else, and you just see the numbers going higher and higher. And I'm like, okay, somebody's gonna, be able to say, yep, I'm gonna take that money and eliminate all these other people in the games. That, it was just very shocking of some people's preservation of not cashing out in that sense. And that's so well said, Jeff, in terms of saying, the longer I stay on, the more my story is going to be featured in this show that's going to be watched by all of MrBeast's fans, including your son Jack is a big fan, as he was talking about in the show. He was your coach, right? So I think that there is so much to that, and not just CTD, but just rare diseases in general, of getting that spotlight, of being so important. So I want to talk about Jack for a little bit, because along with Jen, Jack came on and you both were featured twice. At one point, I forget how many people were left, maybe 10-ish, that they brought in family. And then obviously when Jeff won. So Jen, tell me a little bit about that experience of being able to, hug and kiss Jeff and have Jack right there with you, and, both of those times.
I mean, it was a lot. It was a lot. And it was a lot because Jack didn't have a passport, 36 hours to turn around a passport. We had this whole adventure. And when we had gotten on set and started to see the magnitude of the set, it gave us a little bit of insight to potentially what he had been feeling and experiencing. But when we got out, I don't know if it was just out of body, honestly. And we had not seen each other or spoken to each other for so long by that point, because they collect all technology, right? There's an emergency line. But I think it was in that moment that we realized this is going to change the direction of our efforts for Lucas, regardless of the outcome. And Jack was the like only kid there, and he was fantastic. And the fact that he was able to hold the information for 5 months post being there till it aired. And then that night of the family reunions, we were sent away. He thought we went home, and then we slowly got to hotels, and production texted us like, can you stick around? Can you stick around and go home with your person? So if you can stay, in Toronto, which is where they were filming, for a couple more days, that would be great. So we were just on call, and we weren't sure if we were going to get the call to bring home pieces of him, because he had just lost in final top 5, top 3. Or what was going to happen. And then, what people don't realize is we did not see the final challenge. We were behind the curtain. They called us on set when the top 6, when it went to top 3, and we were behind a curtain. So it started, and obviously he chose the right briefcase very early on. So they go, okay, we're going to start the final challenge. We don't know how long it's going to take. So Jack and I were sitting in dyad position, just kind of staring at each other like, what are you going to say? And I go, what are you going to say? And then the cannons go off, and we thought that was the start of the event.
No way.
And then at that point was when we rounded the corner, and Jack was the one that noticed first. He goes, wait, there's $10 million out here.
So you didn't even know that aspect of it. So for people that haven't seen Beast Games, it started out as this is the biggest grand prize in a TV show of $5 million.
Yep.
And then once it was down to 6-ish, something like that.
The coin flip.
And
Okay.
Kira, just to get perspective, like the whole time I was at Beast Games, we thought it was 5 million. We start filming the last episode at 9:30 at night. And that's when the coin flip happened. And then Beast Games stopped filming probably at 6 or 6:30 in the morning. So 10 hours before I won, I thought it was $5 million. So that 10 million is so fresh to all the contestants. So it's like, it was just it was crazy.
And then as Jen was saying, and MrBeast said after you won, Jeff, that basically the last contest, the last game was to choose one of 10 briefcases. And if you chose the right one, it had a check for $10 million in there. And they had played this out, as you can imagine, of, all right, how will this go? Let's test it out with some people. And MrBeast was like, it never ran this way. It never ran where the person guessed the briefcase on the first try. I rewatched that a couple times because you're looking at the other, it's down to you and one other person. So you've got a 50% chance basically at $10 million. Was it, you feel like you just had this draw to that briefcase, or by asking the questions you did to your competitor and looking at her facial reactions and what she said, did that tip you off at all? Because it was very intense.
It was, and I was going against a competitor who I knew from the beginning. Like, we were right next to each other for 3 days filming episode 1, Tawana, and she's a great person. So, I mean, to answer your question, I think it was a combination of the both. Like, I was remarkably calm, I was focused, and I was drawn to that briefcase. But at the same time, I'm not foolish enough to think that it might not be something else. So I was just trying to pressure test her and see how she responded. Like, could she dissuade me from going to that briefcase? And there's nothing she said that took me away from 6. And so when I opened it, I felt really good, which is just odd to think about because literally I had a 10% chance. And I open the briefcase, the light shines on me, and then I hear MrBeast kind of audibly like, oh. And so that's when I knew I won.
And what a moment. And I love for your family that obviously most of this experience is captured on the show, not all the footage of you, but you're really featured throughout. But to have that moment captured on camera for your family to watch back over the years, and especially when Jen and Jack join you on the stage, I mean, that just must be such a wonderful capture to like better than any home movie someone can make.
And again, like I didn't even know they were still there. So I didn't expect to
Right.
look down and see them. So I was like, I climbed up to the
You
top of the,
climbed up and you're like, I got that. I won.
and I look down and I see them and I just kind of lose it. And then Jen gives me a hug and just says, "We're going to find a cure for Lucas."
Yeah. And you can hear that. That actually, they must have mic'd you, Jen, because you can hear that, and with the subtitles.
And we know, I mean, obviously your listeners know too, to find a cure for a rare disease costs tens of millions of dollars. It could cost upward to $100 million. So it's not that like we flip a switch, we give this money somewhere, and then Lucas is cured. It's a little bit more complex and nuanced than that, but undoubtedly this is going to help, and undoubtedly this is going to kind of jumpstart and kind of bolster our research, which we've been doing for 25 years, but also find there's some super philanthropic people out there. There's researchers who have maybe never studied creatine that kind of go, wow, if we combine these compounds, or if this kind of system helps get over the blood-brain barrier, just collaborating amongst researchers that we've seen since the games has been phenomenal.
For people that aren't familiar with creatine transporter deficiency, can one of you provide an overview of what the disease is and then how it affects Lucas?
Sure. I'll talk about what the disease is, and Jen can talk about how it affects. But it's a genetic disorder where his gene, the SLC6A gene, that takes creatine from the blood into the muscles and into the brain, is defective. So it's just misspelled. And your brain has two forms of energy that it operates on. One is glucose, and the other is creatine. And the brain is the organ in your body that needs the most energy, that rarely ever rests. So his brain doesn't get half the energy sources it needs to function, develop, and thrive. Um, and this was discovered in the year 2000, and there's no treatments, there's no therapies, there's no cures. He takes some supplements, arginine, glycine, creatine. There's anecdotal evidence that it helps a little bit, but no scientific evidence that it does.
So day to day, Lucas is, we say all the time, he's happy, right? He's a overall happy kid. Developmentally, though, he's behind. So he's turning 8 in July, and he's probably tracking at a 2-year-old milestone. And in the beginning, when we were first lucky enough to have the diagnosis, he just showed up as global development delay, where everything was just a step behind, where average normal kids, where his brother was at that age. So low muscle tone, fine motor skills were behind, gross motor skills. And then the biggest kind of flag is the speech, because the speech delay is the most impaired one, with the lack of creatine going to his brain for development. And so luckily we have caught up on the gross motor and a bit of the fine motor. COVID was a fun time. We had a trampoline in the house to teach him how to jump. We did a lot of therapies with an iPad with 3 people, one chasing him, one with holding the iPad, and one trying to direct therapies. We've had incredible teams along the way, between the docs, the school district, early intervention, social workers. So we've been really lucky there. But he's in a special education class, and he has like an iPad to try to communicate with us. However, we do our best. And ultimately, when he's not a happy kid, it's because we can see that the words are stuck between his brain and his voice. And if you think about it from even as an adult, a stroke patient, my grandmother had a stroke and lost her language, how frustrating it is to not be able to communicate with another person for your needs or what's happening or your feelings. We don't get to really ask him if he had a good day or a bad day, or if something hurts or if something's bothering him. And so and we do our best. However, we don't know if a treatment could flip a switch and he could all of a sudden have all the words pour out because he cognitively understands us when he says it's time for a walk, it's time to go take a bath, it's we're going to go to school, do you want to eat? So what we don't know is how magical a treatment can be. Can it be, or is it just his pace speeds up a little bit and he has an opportunity to maybe live semi-independently and not with us. So we have hopes on a lot of things. I always laugh because I say Jeff's the optimistic parent and I'm a bit more pessimistic or realistic. And
Pragmatic.
You balance each other out. That's beautiful.
so he's like, it's gonna be the switch. Everything is going to get caught up. It's gonna pour out. And that's of course the dream.
Well, it's not caught up. It's more of, any researcher we talk to, it's if we get creatine to the brain, you'll see a market improvement. We don't know. It's not like he's going to catch up and be like a 9-year-old tomorrow, but he'll gradually. And obviously, the earlier you get a treatment, the better. If someone's 3 months old and has a treatment, yeah, they might have a life that's very typical. The older you get, the more the kind of the brain, as you know, develops. But the good news is when you do an MRI, there's no white matter kind of deterioration. Nobody knows what's going to happen, but based on the power of creatine, even for neurotypical people, and there's so much in kind of gym bro culture and even kind of normal brain health today. If we get creatine to his brain, we will see some huge differences, and it's going to happen. We just got to keep pushing the rock uphill.
And we're racing, right? We're racing against time at this point. And when we started our journey with ACD and becoming parents and on the board, Lukey was much younger, and there was a lot more hope that if we found something in the next 2 to 3 years, it could impact his life much more meaningfully than now as he's about to turn 8. And so that sits on our forefront a lot. When I look at him and I go, we will obviously provide funds towards research that we think is going to be viable or promising. But ultimately, this platform is, how do we get on everyone's radar? How do we get on science and researchers and the medical community and people that can, to his point, connect the dots and talk to each other? How do we get interest in what's happening with a very small subset of human beings across the world, right? Even though we're significantly underdiagnosed, but is obviously very, very meaningful for us.
The earlier, the better in terms of any kind of treatments. And we see that for most disorders, that as it progresses, usually it's very rare to have any kind of treatments reverse symptoms, but certainly help. But we don't know, like, it really is possible that it could be flipping a switch, as Jeff is saying. And I mean, I'm wondering, Jeff, you were bringing up like kind of, gym bro culture and, oh, you're taking your creatine. Like, I know my brother is active. He works out and he takes a creatine supplement. Because of that, is there extra research about creatine and how it works in the body that's helpful for CTD? Or is it more separate and I'm more looking at it like an optimist?
I share your sentiments. I mean, I think it's too early to tell. So, I mean, creatine, when I played football in college 20 years ago, so creatine's always been in the athletic kind of realm, bodybuilders, high performance athletes. But now we're seeing it on, whether it's Huberman or Peter Attia or Rhonda Patrick, you're seeing them talk about it on these health and wellness, anti-aging podcasts. And a study just came out, I think last month, where like they're actually dosing up to 20 grams a day, and they're seeing that it's safe and it's great for kind of sleep deprived people to be able to operate, kind of function normally the next day. So long story short, they're seeing that creatine plays such an important role in our brains, even healthy humans. So I think that, ultimately people want to figure out is, how do we get more creatine to the brain safely? Because even if you just take it orally, I mean, a lot of it kind of goes into the gut, and the likelihood of getting it to the brain is kind of slim to none. So if the medical or scientific community can figure out how to get creatine to the brain for CTD patients, it could also help people who are aging. Part of me kind of thinks that a lot of older adults who are having kind of memory lapses, and I used to work in the older adult space, might be because their brains are kind of operating on low power mode because they're not getting the energy it needs to function. To answer your question, I think there has never been a better time to have CTD, because I think there's so much focus on creatine right now, and obviously kind of the MrBeast effect. A lot more people know about it. So it's up to us to kind of strike while the iron's hot.
a lot of people don't realize, but by studying rare diseases, we can also learn so much just about the human body, and it can end up having a lot of positive consequences of, oh, well, now we learned this and we can have this new treatment or something that helps everybody. And I think with CTD, I can see that as a really good example of that. If we really understand how to deliver creatine past the blood brain barrier into the brain, it wouldn't, from what I'm kind of thinking through theoretically, it wouldn't just help Lucas and other people with CTD, but possibly everybody, as you're saying, like, could this be helpful for people as they're getting older? And I think that's a reason that companies and other investors should be putting money into this research, because not just for Lucas and the other kiddos and people that have this disorder, but if they're more focused on a bottom line and what we could learn from this, that seems like a really good reason to invest in what are we gonna find out and be able to invest. You think about general research and things in this area, like how do we come up with Ozempic, Wegovy, that is now so ubiquitous? Everybody knows what that is. So this seems like a really good opportunity for investors.
I agree. Yeah. And for all those listening, please reach out to us. We're happy to make the contact.
Yeah, we'll certainly put contact information in the show notes. And just this past week, I have to bring it up because it happened. News broke of the world's first patient to be treated with a personalized CRISPR therapy. And it happened in Philly. It's just remarkable that this happened last week. And I'm talking to you now. Does this give you hope that there could be a CRISPR treatment developed for Lucas? Does he have a genetic change that it theoretically could work to have a CRISPR treatment?
Of course, it gives me hope. I mean, and again, this is me being the optimist. We can get Jen's take in a sec, but we do have some researchers who are working on gene therapy for CTD. When you think about CTD and gene therapy, talking to these researchers years ago, it was like it's gonna be hard. It's gonna be very, very hard, and it's different when you're dealing with the brain than dealing with something like the liver. So, but the research, anecdotally, what I've heard has been going very well for gene therapy for CTD. And then you see this New York Times article and this thing out of CHOP, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's so promising. It gives me so much hope. And I think this is kind of the future of medicine, kind of writ large. Is even I think these cancers, cancers are very generic. You have breast cancer, you have prostate cancer, but I'd imagine when you really look at them closely, they're pretty rare. They're pretty unique. And I think we will probably move to this more personalized medicine with the advent of AI and just kind of advances in medical technology. So I think this is just kind of the beginning of a lot of personalized medicine for all of us moving forward. And hopefully this helps kind of push more advances with CTD, especially when it comes to kind of gene therapy.
Oh, certainly. I mean, it's just remarkable. I think about in 2012 when this podcast started, there was a big landmark paper about CRISPR and talking about its potential. And then you fast forward to 2023 and we've got the first FDA approved treatment, and that was for sickle cell. And now just last week we now have a personalized CRISPR. I mean, it's just the how fast therapies are being developed with CRISPR is phenomenal. I think you bring a good point, Jeff, that looking at conditions that are primarily brain conditions is tougher than when you look at conditions like for sickle cell. You can take someone's bone marrow out, CRISPR it up, and put it back in them. It's a little bit easier when you're looking at blood conditions or a certain organ like liver. So it's a little bit tougher. But then again, it's like, would it help of just if to figure out the issue is that the creatine is not getting into the brain. So if there's a way to like deliver it, even if it's not in the brain, I don't know. It seems like I would not be surprised in the next 10 years we get a CRISPR treatment for CTD.
I think it'll be sooner.
Yeah.
Super excited about it. When I talk to the researchers, again, with CTD, it's always kind of been that there's three different types of creatine deficiencies. There's AGAT, there's GAMT, and there's CTD. AGAT and GAMT are either missing arginine or glycine, which are the two precursors to making creatine, and those are somewhat treatable. You just have to replace either glycine or arginine, but ultimately they would benefit from gene therapy because you have to take these supplements, you have to change your diet. But with CTD, they always say it's so much harder. There's no quick fix. But lately, those even kind of most bearish researchers are starting to kind of soften up and kind of go, I think there might be a path. And then obviously now with a bigger light shined on it and kind of more advocacy, I am utterly convinced within the next few years, we will see something probably in kind of clinical trials or in the lab that is sufficient. And then obviously we have to go through the process to get it into a human.
As you said, there's never been a better time to be in the CTD community and be looking for treatment, especially because of the money that both of you are putting into this with the Beast Games winnings. It's just, I can't imagine being another parent of a kiddo that has CTD and hearing about this and saying, wow, the Allens are really making a change for us and investing this money, and you're going to have an impact. There's no way you're not going to, it's not, oh, well, we can just buy a cure. Maybe $100 million or $1 billion. Maybe that'll be the next round. They'll bring you back, right?
But to your point, I think like one of my favorite, and thousands of people reached out to me after the games. People from the scientific community, people who are just kind of, regular Joes and Janes. But one of my favorite kind of DMs was from a mother in Argentina. She goes, my son is 9 and has CTD. And I've never talked to anybody ever besides my doctor who knew about CTD. And now I feel like I'm not alone. Now I feel like someone's helped me kind of fight for my son. And those are the messages where it's like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, it's obviously bigger than Lucas. It's Cadman, it's Rohan, it's Devin, it's Xavier. And there's hundreds of kids around the world with the condition, but we think it's underdiagnosed by 100-fold. So if we can provide a treatment or a solution, there will be more newborn testing for this. So I can assure you there's hundreds, if not thousands, of kids today with this condition who have not been diagnosed, who ultimately will be able to be treated kind of with a combination of help from MrBeast and Beast Games, but also all the researchers and scientists who've been dedicating decades to this work.
Yeah, you think about the healthcare providers that, oh, I'm going to put on Beast Games, watch this. And then all of a sudden they're like, wait a minute, I think I have a patient that might have this condition. Just that impact of like, there were probably kids and adults diagnosed with the condition because their healthcare provider saw you on Beast Games. Like, that's just one example of the impact you're going to have. And before we close out, I wanted to share a quote that was the most meaningful quote to me and the most impactful that you said, Jeff. You were in the top 2, and you were basically talking to your family and looking directly in the camera. And you said, thank you for bringing purpose to your dad's life. And you were talking to Lucas. And I was just like, it was just such an emotional moment. And you were so eloquent with everything you were sharing. But that sentence, can you both share about the joy that Lucas has brought to your family and something that he loves, something that people can say, oh yeah, when I was learning about the Allens, I was learning about Lucas, like Lucas loves this food, or when you put this TV show on, or a certain place that you walk. Is there something you want to share about Lucas with the world?
I think when it comes to any event, the event doesn't shape kind of how you feel. It's your response. I think with people like Lucas, people with rare diseases, with special needs, there's some parents who view it as curses, and there's other parents who view it as blessings. I think you have to work to find out which one it is. And I think fortunately for us is we've worked to find the blessing that Lucas has given us and our family. And he did give me purpose to make me realize kind of what's most important. He helped give me my faith back too. And certainly our life is different. Our life is not what we thought it would be as parents, as husband and wife, but it is one that is beautiful and challenging, but certainly meaningful. And Lucas, since he's been a kid, loves trains. So he loves going on walks and loves, even to this day, like at the railroad crossings when trains go by. And he just loves connecting with his family. Just even the little things. One of my favorite things about Lucas is when I'm maybe downstairs and I hear Jen and Lucas upstairs playing, and I hear them both laughing, and it's just like, it just kind of fills me up.
How can it not, hearing your family members just laughing and having a good time and just enjoying that moment together?
It's so good. And like jealousy at all, but like, oh, he doesn't laugh with me like that. Like mom gets him to
Smidge,
laugh.
right? Yeah.
Maybe a little bit, but it's they have so much fun together. Jen is like the super mom, like amazing at her job, an amazing wife, but like just an amazing mother. Like even before Lucas's diagnosis, just always making sure that she always put the needs of our kids over hers. I think it's one of the reasons why he's probably so happy and and also is not seizing. 60% of kiddos with this condition are epileptic, and he hasn't had a seizure today.
Really?
We've been super fortunate.
Wow. I wish that could have been more captured on the show, Jen, of just that you're like super mom. That quote should have been in the show from Jeff there, huh?
I laugh because I go, Jack got a speaking role on episode 9. I go, I'm like supporting Cass with no words.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. You won't even get royalties because you didn't say a line. Yeah.
Exactly. And we laugh because some of the articles that have come out since the game, my friends will be like, we searched for your name, it didn't show up. It didn't show up in the words in the article. And I go, the single dad vibe is vibing. But the pragmatic optimist pessimist role, like it's taken me longer to move into acceptance of Lucas's diagnosis than I think it has for Jeff. I think Jeff found a bit more peace faster than I did, just because, I think mothers think about everything. And I also think about the world's nice to disabled kids, but they're not that nice to disabled adults, and how are they going to respond when he's 6'2" and his language is off, and is he going to be seen as threatening, or, all these things are the things that keep me up at night. But to Jeff's point, the blessing in it is that I think there's a lot of research that says parents of special needs kiddos have a lot more reasons to be divorced.
Yeah.
Because, you race for a little bit of normality. Half the time is better than none of the time. We have a very much divide and conquer lifestyle that we don't do family dinners. It's, one of us can go out with Jack for dinner, or it's never the four of us. The four of us have not been to a restaurant together in many, many moons. And so, when I look at Lucas, I go, he's saved us, right? He saved us on a marriage, on a commitment to something bigger. For Jeff, it's been his faith. For me, in that when things get hard, it's not just about, I don't get to bail on him because we brought him in. We brought him into this world, and we said we were going to choose you and we were going to be there for you. And so I think that that's been like the biggest thing for us to realize of his purpose and his sacrifice to be our son in this condition is also a huge gift for us, and how do we make sure Jack knows that? And Jack doesn't see it as a burden and of not having a normal brother to play with, that in the difference, we are going to be better humans.
Yeah.
So that's been hard, but part of what we hang on to, having people like you reach out and go, let me help you shine the light a little bit more. We are so thankful for that, because we tried to do it on our own for a couple years, and the magnitude of the last 6 months of, the audience and the interest and just the showcasing of this disease has been more than we could ever hope for.
Well, that's just so well said, both of you, of the balancing of the struggles and the beautiful side of just your family and all coming together. That I hope that, this episode will probably not have as big of an impact as Beast Games, but I hope that, it's certainly reaching a lot of healthcare providers that are working in genetics. That's the biggest chunk of our audience, along with students that are about to graduate or have graduated this month and entering this field. So hopefully it can help a little bit. Is there anything you wanted to leave the audience with? I know, I don't think we actually mentioned the Association for Creatine Deficiencies. I wanted to mention that. We're going to have a lot of links and resources in the show notes. But before I close out, I just wanted to open it up if there's anything else you wanted to mention.
When it comes to being a rare disease parent, get involved with your association, or if you don't have one, build one. The Association for Creatine Deficiencies, you can find it at creatineinfo.org, was founded in 2012. And between 2012 and 2020, funded about 40 grand worth of research. But last year we funded 400 grand. And God willing, this year it'll be well over $1 million. I just think it's so important that the work that these non-profit rare disease nonprofits associations do. If you want to get involved, or if you want to support kind of our efforts and our family's efforts, go to creatineinfo.org, and you can sign up to our newsletter, but also you can contribute as well. And we're going to continue to document our journey. And you can find me on Instagram at legacy.831, or we've documented a lot of this on YouTube at Legacy831 Official.
No, that's incredible. And we'll certainly keep the audience updated on how your journey is going as a family. And again, all links in the show notes for everything that we mentioned in this episode and more. Jeffrey and Jen, thank you so much for just being so open and being a face and voice for the CTD community and rare diseases in general. I wish you the absolute best of luck in finding a cure for Lucas. And certainly give Lucas and Jack an extra hug from me of just, wanting the best for your family.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
And we'll come back on when we have a treatment.
Yes.
When one of your listeners did the impossible and said, you know what, I'm going to make the impossible possible, because that's the day and age we're living in. All the things that are happening in the world, we wouldn't have thought possible when we were kids.
There could be a scientist listening right now that's on their jog and they're like, I might have the infrastructure. Let's set that up. Let's reach out. And
I did a study back in 2018. Let me dust that off.
Right. Oh, there's something with creatine that I figured out, and, blood-brain barrier, so something, right? We need that. So yeah, please come back on, reach out when you have a new treatment, when you have the cure, because at that point, it's just going to be a half-hour celebration, I think.
Can't wait.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for taking the time, being the celebrities that you now are.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thanks for watching DNA Today. To access all of our episodes, head over to dnatoday.com. We also have a lot of bonus content on there that you can enjoy. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, guest pitches, you name it, send them in to info@dnatoday.com. We'd also really appreciate if you could take a moment to rate and review the podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to the show. It really helps more nerds like yourself find the show. Also, if you like giveaways and other ways to connect with us, I recommend following us on social. We're at DNA Today Podcast. We also have a Patreon if you want to be the most level involved in the show. That's also at DNA Today Podcast. Thank you so much for listening and watching. Join us next time to learn and discover new advances in the world of genetics.